Chapter 792. That's right, I'm here to find out about the Tianyuan Palace. She directly stated her intentions. Tianyuan Palace. This faction has been causing a lot of trouble in Enchanting recently. However, they are divided into two factions and have been fighting amongst themselves. Many factions have already set their eyes on them. Why, are you interested in this faction too? He gently scraped the tea and glanced at her as he spoke. You can say that. Hearing this, Renxiang took a sip of tea and put down the teacup, saying, this faction is a little messy now, and the people in one of the factions are ruthless, causing many aristocratic families and factions to be unhappy. I just received news yesterday that one of the villains has set their eyes on the 100 Years Mountain. However, the 100 Years Mountain is owned by a small family, and that family has been there for generations. However, it seems that they intend to exterminate the family. The people of the Tianyuan Palace are much more ruthless than our Yanhol. Hearing this, Fengzhou's face darkened, asking, what about the other faction? Are they just going to let them do whatever they want? There are fewer people in that faction. It is said that they used to follow the left guardian Xianghua. There were originally 50 to 60 people, but the leader of the villains is a nascent soul cultivator. He has been looking for opportunities to kill people in that faction, and now there are less than 20 people left. I think that even if they want to fight back, they don't have the strength. As he spoke, his voice paused. Seeing her slightly darkened face, he asked, are you really interested in this faction? Do you need our help? Just give me all the information you have, and I can handle the rest. She said in a low voice. He smiled, all right, but if you need help, don't forget about me. Master said that if you need any help, I will fully cooperate with you. Yanhol will also be at your disposal. Hearing this, her eyes moved slightly. She thought for a moment and asked, do you have news of him? Renxiang held his chin with one hand and asked with a smile, knowing the answer, who? Fengzhou glanced at him, of course it's your master. Master. He sighed and shook his head, it's not too good. Hearing this, her heart jumped, why is it not too good? Is it the 1,000-year frost poison in his body? Or is it because of other reasons? Both. Other than his body, his current situation isn't very good either. Seeing the unconcealable worry in her eyes, he said, that's right, I received news that you were attacked some time ago. Then I passed the news to Master. I think he will be even more worried after hearing about you. Upon hearing this, Fengzhou glared at him. If you know, why are you still spreading it? Nothing happened to me. If you tell him about this, it will only make him worry. What's the point of telling him? Those people originally wanted to capture you to deal with Master. Since I was left behind by Master to keep an eye on you, naturally I have to report any movements to my superiors, right? He smiled and said, I heard that you made a 10-year agreement with Master. Do you really plan to not see each other for 10 years? Hearing this, Fengzhou chuckled. Her clear eyes swept him up and down with a smile. Are you sure you're not a woman? Why are you more gossipy than a woman? Chapter 793. Fengzhou couldn't help but shake his head and smile. I don't care about anything that can be robbed. So, you don't have to worry about us. Okay. He smiled and asked, it's getting late. How about I show you around the Cool Breeze gang? I remember this is a brothel, right? She stared at him with a strange expression. Yes. There are all kinds of handsome men here. If you want a seductive man, you can have a seductive one. If you want a strong man, you can have a strong man. Or a pretty boy. There are all kinds. See, there are also twins like this. He gestured to the two twin guards standing behind him. Hearing this, the two guards glanced at Fengzhou at the same time. Then, they lowered their heads and consciously took a step back. In the future, When I have the chance, I will tell your master about you showing me around the Cool Breeze gang. I believe he will be very interested in this news. Being rebutted, Ren Xiang smiled embarrassedly. Actually, I was joking. Yes, I know. I was also joking. She smiled back. The corners of Ren Xiang's mouth twitched. At this moment, he finally knew why his master had been completely controlled by her. At this moment, he finally knew why Grey Wolf was sent to the Cool Breeze gang by his master when they met. In the end, Ren Xiang could only give her the information about the Tianyuan Palace. Finally, he personally saw her out of the Cool Breeze gang. Before leaving, he asked, "Child Feng, do you want me to send some people for you to use?" "No, I have people by my side." She waved her hand. "Thank you for the information. Well, if you encounter any trouble in the future, you can send someone to find me." He worriedly reminded her. "Okay." She turned around and smiled. Then she walked away. Seeing that it was still early, she didn't go to the inn. Instead, she went to the treasure house to see if there were any suitable weapons for the three of them. She went inside and chose a sword for Xianghua, a dagger for Bai Xiao, and a bag of silver needles. In the end, she didn't see any fan-like weapons, so she went to the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper, do you have any fan-shaped magic artifacts here?" "A fan?" The shopkeeper thought for a moment and said, "Yes, please wait for a moment. I'll go and show it to you." The shopkeeper went up to the second floor. Not long after, he took out a medium-sized box. "Sir, please take a look. This is a white jade fan, but there is a mechanism here. Moreover, this is a flying celestial device. In addition to being an offensive celestial device, it also has defensive power. Therefore, it is more expensive. This thing has been in our building for many years. What do you think, sir?" Feng Zhou looked at it and nodded. "Not bad, I'll take it." Hearing this, the shopkeeper was overjoyed. He hurriedly put the fan back into the box and wrapped it up for Feng Zhou. After calculating the bill, he even gave the bag of silver needles to her as a bonus. When she arrived at the inn, the three of them were already waiting there. Seeing her return, the three of them stood up. "Master! Young master!" Feng Zhou's gaze swept over the three of them. She saw that Xianghua had changed into a black robe. His beard was shaved, and he looked energetic. Du Fan had changed into a beige robe and was dressed like a scholar. His appearance was ordinary and unremarkable, but he was also upright. Chapter 794. When the three of them took a look at the thing she handed over, they couldn't help but feel moved, especially Du Fan, who was even more delighted when he saw that it was a fan. "Thank you, master." "Thank you, young master. I have one too." Bai Xiao looked at the dagger and asked, "But it's useless for me, I rarely use it." He wouldn't dare to kill anyone with it. "It's for you to protect yourself, what do you think you're doing?" Feng Zhou rolled her eyes at him and motioned, "Sit down." Then, she beckoned the waiter to serve the dishes, and they ordered a table full of dishes and wine. After eating, "Have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow morning, Xiao Bai will go to the 100 Years Mountain with me. Xianghua, you and Du Fan will contact your former subordinates. After gathering them, secretly hide in the 100 Years Mountain and wait for orders," she said, pouring a cup of wine and drinking. "Yes." Several people responded, eating while thinking about things. After the meal, Feng Zhou went to the guest room to rest, while Xianghua and Du Fan went out of the inn, intending to contact their people in the area. The next morning, after Feng Zhou said a few words to them, she set off with Bai Xiao to the 100 Years Mountain. Compared to looking for the people of Tianyuan Palace, she planned to go to the 100 Years Mountain to wait for them. It was more convenient and convenient. After flying for nearly a day, the two arrived at the foot of the 100 Years Mountain in the evening. Looking at the mountain, Fengjiu understood why the people of Tianyuan Palace were eyeing this place. It had to be said that this place was really good. It was surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there was only one exit. At the bottom of the mountain, there was some depression, forming a place like a valley. There were mountains and rivers around, and the environment was quiet and secluded. It was simply the best gathering place for forces, and the air was filled with smoke, looking like a fairyland. How do we get in? This place should be private, right? We'll probably be caught if we go in. Bai Xiao looked around and saw that they could only see the outside, but not the inside. She couldn't help but ask, "Do you think there will be an ambush inside?" Hearing this, Fengjiu was speechless. If you were so careful in the past, you probably wouldn't have been buried alive. But look at this place, why is it strange? Normally, the location of the family should be in a bustling area, right? At least, that's the case in my family, but here. Look, this place looks fine during the day, but at night, I think it will be a little creepy. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flickered. She took a closer look and said, "Well, what you said makes sense. I was so focused on getting the information about the Tianyuan Palace that I forgot to ask about this clan. I only heard that it's a small clan that's not very influential. However, it's really strange that this clan chose to live here. Right? I thought it was strange. This is the only place on this mountain, and there's only one clan. It's really strange." Bai Xiao said. Seeing that the sky was darkening, he couldn't help but ask, "Young master, how do we go in? Or are we going to find a place to stay first?" "Of course we're going in. Why are we here if not going in?" She looked at the sky and said, "It's getting dark. We can go in and say that we're lodging." Chapter 795. Seeing that she had stopped, Bai Xiao looked around and asked, "What's the matter? Why aren't you moving? There's an array." She glanced around and her gaze fell on the road under her feet. There's an array starting from here. Moreover, this array is not an ordinary maze array. She raised her eyes and looked ahead. A thoughtful look appeared in her eyes. Is this family really just a small one? Bai Xiao, who was following beside her, saw that she was thinking about something, so he didn't disturb her. Instead, he looked around. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he seemed to see someone floating by not far away. However, when he looked again, the person disappeared. Could it be that I'm seeing things? He muttered and rubbed his eyes. What do you mean? Fengjiu asked. I think I saw someone just now, he said. Someone? That's impossible. There's no one else's aura around here except for the two of us, she said. Then, she added, there's a fog in here. I think you're seeing things. Follow me closely and don't get lost in the array. This maze array can change. Okay, I got it, he responded and followed closely beside her. Fengjiu was familiar with arrays, so he walked in the array with Bai Xiao without any trouble. However, when the two of them walked out of the maze array and were about to walk forward, a voice suddenly sounded in their ears. The two of you, this is not a place where you should be. Fengjiu was stunned. He immediately turned around and saw a figure looming in the fog on their left. The person was dressed in a black robe. His entire body was wrapped in the black robe. His eyes were like a pool of lifeless stagnant water. They were gloomy and made people's heads tremble. Are you a human or a ghost? Bai Xiao was shocked and asked in a trembling voice. The person's gaze fell on Bai Xiao and then on Fengjiu. Go back. You shouldn't be here. The voice was light and deep as it drifted through the air. It sounded as if it was coming from all directions. If they hadn't seen the figure standing there, they wouldn't have been able to identify the source of the voice. Seeing this, Fengjiu came back to his senses. His eyes flickered as he cupped his fists and said, "Senior, we have no ill intentions. We just want to give your residents a reminder and a piece of news." The man looked at Feng Zhou quietly. "Speak." "Senior, have you heard of the Tianyuan Palace?" she asked. "Yes." The black-robed man responded and didn't say anything else. Seeing this, Feng Zhou simply told him about the Tianyuan Palace's intention to occupy the 100 Years Mountain. Finally, she said, "Because there is a nascent soul cultivator, several golden core cultivators, and many foundation establishment cultivators among them, I wanted to come over and warn you. If the strength of the mansion does not allow it, please avoid them as soon as possible. Thank you. You may leave." The black-robed man didn't leave. He just stood there and stared at the two of them. "Goodbye." Feng Zhou didn't stay for long. He cupped his fists and left with Bai Xiao. The black-robed man watched the two of them walk into the formation. Not long after, their figures disappeared in front of him. Only then did he turn and leave. Chapter 796. We're leaving just like that. Bai Xiao looked back. That strange person had disappeared, and that dangerous aura had also disappeared. Yes, this place is not right. We can't go in again. As she spoke, she led him out of the array and to the foot of the mountain. She said, "We'll wait for Xiang Hua and the others at the foot of the mountain. We can't go in. Isn't that person very powerful? When he appeared, all the hair on my body stood up." "It's not that the hair on your body stood up when he appeared. It's just that the cold air inside is heavier. Moreover, as the sky darkens, the cold air becomes heavier. So I think there should be something dirty inside." What? Something dirty? The kind that's light as a feather?" His voice trembled as he asked. His face had also turned pale for a few days. He had been wandering outside for so long, but he had never encountered such a thing. How could he have encountered such a thing after only following her for a few days? "Yes, I'll get someone to investigate this place later. How about this? You go into the city and wait for me. I'll wait here for Xiang Hua and the others. I'll go into the city to find you after they arrive. Oh right, take this and go to the city to find a shop with the pattern on the token. Then ask them for information about the 100-Year Mountain." She gestured for him to leave first. Bai Xiao took the token and looked at her worriedly. He asked, "You want me to go first? Then what about you? This place is so dangerous. Can you do it alone?" "Don't worry. I'm not going in. Hurry up and go. Go into the city before it gets dark," she instructed him. "All right then. Anyway, I'm not good at fighting and can't help you much. I won't hold you back here. I'll go into the first inn in the city and wait for you. You can go there to find me." As he spoke, he put away the token and headed in the direction of the city. After watching him leave, Feng Zhou looked back at the strange mountain. She also left and went to a tree by the mountain path to find a place to wait for Xiang Hua and the others. That night, Xiang Hua and the rest did not appear, nor did the group from the Heavenly Yuan Palace. However, she noticed that there seemed to be some sort of light drifting about the 100-Year Mountain. As the night deepened, a faint and strange sound rang out. The next day, everything was as usual. The 100 Years Mountain looked like an ordinary mountain. She noticed that some woodcutters and herb gatherers would occasionally enter the mountain by mistake and walk out safely after circling inside. On the night of the second day, the surroundings were still quiet. There seemed to be a faint gloomy qi in the air. The night seemed to be very peaceful and nothing happened. However, on the third day, the people of the Tianyuan Palace came under the lead of the Yuanying Realm Cultivator. There were about 100 people, each of them emitting a ferocious aura. They strode towards the 100 Years Mountain. Seeing nearly 100 people enter, her eyes flickered. After waiting for about half an incense stick's worth of time, she saw Xianghua and Du Fan arrive with about 20 people. Therefore, she took a leap and arrived at the mountain path. "Young master! Master!" the two called out. After they came to her side, Xianghua introduced them to her. "They are all from the Tianyuan Palace. They are also the brothers I found. I have already told them that you are the disciple of the palace master. They are all willing to follow you." Chapter 797. Fengjiu's gaze swept over them. There were only 21 people. They all looked middle-aged, but in fact, they were definitely more than 30 or 40 years old. Among them, 15 were in the Foundation Establishment realm, and the other 6 were in the Gold Core realm. Compared to the people she saw before, these people were not as ferocious as the previous people, although they had a murderous aura. However, there was still a strong smell of blood on their bodies. Obviously, they had killed many people. She nodded. "Since everyone is here, let's go." With that, she walked into the city. However, the people who heard her words were stunned. One of them asked, "Young master, they have entered the 100 Years Mountain. Are we not going in?" "I'm not going in." She didn't stop walking and didn't even look back. The person behind her frowned and asked in a bad tone, "Then why are we here if we don't go in?" Originally, they wanted to follow her because they heard from Protector Xiang that she was capable and was the disciple of the palace master. Now, it seemed that she was just as so. Fengjiu, who was in front, stopped and glanced back at that person. "Are you questioning me?" Seeing this, Xianghua hurriedly said, "Young master, Chang didn't mean that. It wasn't that he hadn't seen her kill people, and it wasn't that he hadn't seen her ruthless appearance. Therefore, he knew that her dignity was not to be offended. I just want to ask, why don't we go in? Didn't we come here to stop them from killing people and forcibly occupying the land?" The middle-aged man asked in a deep voice, ignoring Xianghua's signal. "Presumptuous. Just obey the master's words. Why do you ask so many questions?" Du Fan shouted and glared at the middle-aged man named Da Chang. "We heard from Protector Xiang that you are the disciple of the palace master, so we followed you. We thought that you must be extraordinary. However, we were slightly disappointed when we saw you. Could it be that you are afraid because they outnumber you? You don't dare to fight with them. If so, why did you say that you want to reform the Tianyuan Palace? Why did you say that you want to restore the prestige of the Tianyuan Palace?" Fengjiu ignored him and looked at Xianghua. "Are these the people you brought?" Hearing this, Xianghua lowered her head. "I'm sorry, young master." No matter what kind of explanation he gave, it was futile. The further they were apart, the further they were apart. Immediately, he stepped forward and kicked the middle-aged man, forcing him to kneel on the ground. "Apologize to young master. Protector Xiang, let me go." The middle-aged man struggled. "He's just a brat. He's not worthy of my kneeling." When Xianghua called them over, he only told them that Fengjiu was Chu Baishan's disciple and the one who held the Qingfeng sword. The others didn't tell them much, so they also thought that Fengjiu was a man. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Let him go." Seeing this, Xianghua glanced at her, then let go of his hand and let the man stand up. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stood up, he threw a punch at Fengjiu and shouted angrily, "I want to see how much ability you inherited from the palace master." "Chang! You stop." Xianghua was shocked. When he wanted to step forward, he was stopped by the others. "Protector Xiang, just wait and see. You said that you brought us to follow this brat. No matter what, we have to see what kind of ability he has. Is such a person really worthy of holding the Qingfeng sword? To become our palace master." Chapter 798. Looking at the fist that was swinging towards her, she glanced at it coldly and a cold smile appeared on her lips. It has always been me who sees if others are qualified or not. No one has ever dared to see if I am qualified or not. You want to fight with me? You're far from qualified. As soon as she finished speaking, a silver needle shot out from her hand and shot into the middle-aged man's acupoint. With just one needle, he fell to the ground with a bang. The others were shocked. Just as they were about to step forward, they heard Fingzhou's voice. Didn't you want to go in? I'll let you in. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at Du Fan. Throw him in. Yes. Du Fan responded. He picked up the man on the ground and rushed up the mountain. When the people behind him saw this, they all frowned and stared at Fingzhou with unfriendly expressions. After about the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Du Fan walked out. However, at this time, his expression was somewhat strange. He came in front of Fingzhou and cupped his hands. Master, I've thrown him in. Then, he stood behind her in an orderly manner. Fingzhou looked at them. You can go in too. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned and left. Du Fan followed behind her. Seeing this, Xiang Hua glanced at them and shook his head. He hurriedly left with Fingzhou. When the 20 people saw this, their faces darkened. It's just a brat. He's too arrogant. You want us to follow such a person? You don't know what you're talking about. Let's go. As they spoke, they all turned and walked up the mountain. They didn't intend to follow this youth with their lives. Now, they felt that he wasn't worth following. As the sky gradually darkened, the faint sounds of insects could be heard from the underbrush. When the 20 people arrived at the top of the mountain and walked along the road, a gust of night wind blew, causing goosebumps to rise on their bodies. Why is it colder on the mountain than at the foot of the mountain? Yes, I feel it too. A gust of wind blew, and it's a little strange. Wasn't Ah Chong thrown in? Why don't I see anyone? Wait, why don't I hear their voices in here? Even if hundreds of people came in, it shouldn't be so quiet, right? The group of people chatted as they walked inside. However, they found that after walking one round, they were back to the same place. There's an array here. We actually managed to get out. Where's Shaolin? He knows formations. Let him lead the way. Someone shouted and turned around to take a look. A man in his 30s was pushed forward in the middle of the crowd. This formation is a little strange. I feel a little uneasy as I walk, as if the route will change. As he spoke, he was a little hesitant, but he was pushed by the others, so he could only brace himself and lead the way. However, after walking around, they came to a place where the fog was thicker. He said, the fog ahead is thicker, and the sky is dark. Follow closely, don't get separated. He didn't turn around, so he didn't know that the number of people behind him was decreasing one by one. However, there were still so many footsteps. Why does it seem like there's no bottom in here? Even after walking for so long, we still haven't gotten out of this formation. It doesn't seem like an ordinary maze formation. Chapter 799. Ghost. There's a ghost. There's a ghost in this place. This piece of information echoed in his mind, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Hearing the footsteps behind him, and hearing the occasional response, he only felt his heart trembling. He had heard that there were ghosts in this world, yin spirits, ghost cultivators, and the like, but he had never encountered one. At this moment, he finally understood why Fingzhou and the rest did not come in. It turned out that they already knew something was wrong with this place. No wonder the hundreds of people who came in did not make a sound. Could it be that they were all delayed by the ghosts? If that was the case, then they really did not have to come in. Their group was already gone, so why would they come in to die? Ta-ta-ta-ta, the footsteps sounded a little messy, as if they were walking behind him. The chilly wind blew, accompanied by the faint rustling of leaves and plants. He did not know if it was an illusion, but there seemed to be a strange laughter coming from the darkness. He broke out in a cold sweat and did not dare to look back. Along the way, he pretended that he did not know what was happening behind him. Step by step, he walked out of the array, saying, Let's go. I can't enter this place. It's okay, I know the way, I'll bring you in. The eerie voice behind him scared him so much that he finally could not help but cry out in alarm. He broke into a run, but at this moment, a pair of cold hands reached out from nowhere and grabbed his feet, dragging him away. It's okay. I know the way, I'll bring you in. Ah. No. No. Ah. The scream pierced through the night sky, echoing in the night. However, it seemed that this voice was blown away by the night wind, and only a faint sound drifted out. It was late at night, and the 100 Years Mountain was still quiet. Only in the depths of the mountain, there seemed to be a house, with faint flickering lights. Du Fan, who followed Fingzhou into the city, was silent and did not speak. He only looked at Fingzhou from time to time, wondering how she knew. The ghosts in this world were not tolerated by the secular world. Just like the ghost cultivators, they could only live in the dark. Even if they cultivated and could walk under the sun, they were still ghost cultivators in the end. Mentioning them would only make people retreat. Normally speaking, the majority of people who died would only become ghosts. If they did not enter the path of reincarnation, they would be reduced to ashes after floating in the world for a period of time. As for those who died with a strong sense of resentment and unwillingness, their souls would deepen after death, and they would become malicious ghosts and evil spirits. Those like ghost cultivators were even rarer, because they needed opportunities. It was just like how ordinary people had to step onto the path of cultivation. Not everyone could do it. As for ghosts, not everyone could see them. Because of this, many people said that they were even scarier than cultivators because they didn't know when they would be haunted by evil ghosts. However, once one's cultivation reached a certain level, ordinary ghosts would not be able to get close to a cultivator. In fact, for some people whose aura was stronger and fiercer, those ghosts would not be able to get close to them. What he was curious about was, how did his master know that there was something strange about that place? How did he know that once they entered, they would not be able to leave? Could it be that she had already explored the way? However, if she had really explored the way, how could she walk out unharmed? Chapter 800. Fingzhou, who was walking leisurely into the city, smirked. His eyes were cold, and his tone was indifferent. That will depend on their abilities. Xiang Hua's heart sank. Depend on their abilities. Did this mean that the odds were against him? What was so strange about that place? Could it stop her from getting involved in it, or even saying those words? They were silent all the way until they reached the inn. Bai Xiao, who had been waiting at the entrance of the inn for 3 days, saw them return. She immediately waved her hand and shouted, young master, I'm here, I'm here." He ran over to Fingzhou's side and looked him up and down. "Are you okay? You didn't come back for so many days. I thought you were delayed by ghosts." Fingzhou knocked his head as soon as he said those words without thinking. "You won't be delayed by me." She laughed and knocked his head. "Did you get the information?" He grinned and scratched his head. "It was delivered yesterday." Let's talk inside." She nodded with a smile and walked into the room he had booked. Xiang Hua, who had followed them in, heard Bai Zhao's words and his eyes narrowed. He was one step behind and pulled Du Fan. "Du Fan, you've been in there. Is it true that?" "I didn't see it, but there was something wrong with it. There was also a formation. If I wasn't familiar with formations, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to walk out of it." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment. After being together for so long, you should have some understanding of Master's character. Those people were seeking their own deaths, so they can't blame Master. You better not lose your sense of propriety. Don't forget how you got out of there. Hearing this, Xianghua's expression turned serious as he said, "Don't worry, I know my priorities." The two of them didn't mention it again. They went upstairs and entered the room. At the table in the room, Bai Xiao poured tea for Fengjiu and said, "I saw that you weren't back yet, so I read the information here. The 100 Years Mountain looks like an ordinary mountain to the outside world, but from the information here, it's very strange. It's really like a ghost mountain." He sat down beside her and said, "It says that some ordinary people go in and walk around before coming out again. Anyway, they can't go in. However, some cultivators go in and never come out again. Also, it said that this place is more creepy at night, and there are faint ghostly flames floating. The information made a guess that this place might be a ghost village, or perhaps the people of this family are raising ghosts. In short, it is a dangerous place." Fengjiu looked at the information and listened to Bai Xiao making a fuss. He couldn't help but smile. "No matter how dangerous it is, you walked out of there. You didn't get dragged away at that time, so you don't have to worry. At that time, that person kept staring at you. I think that if you weren't there, I would definitely have been dragged away." He couldn't help but shudder when he thought of the black-robed man he met inside. After a long time, Fengjiu closed the information and handed it to Bai Xiao. The 100 or so people from the Tianyuan Palace went in and couldn't come out. "That's good. I don't have to do it myself." She stood up and patted her robe. She said to them, "Find a room to rest. We'll stay here for 2 days. If there are no changes, we'll leave." As she spoke, she gestured for them to leave. Chapter 801. Outside, Xianghua hesitated and looked at Bai Xiao. "Let me see the information." Du Fan and Bai Xiao both looked at him. After a pause, Bai Xiao handed the information to him. "Take a look. I have to return it to them later." "Okay." Xianghua responded. After taking the information, he entered the other room that the waiter had booked. Bai Xiao said to Du Fan, "Shall we go downstairs to eat something?" "Okay." Du Fan nodded and went downstairs with him. They ordered a few dishes and ate. Halfway through the meal, Bai Xiao suddenly said, "She hasn't eaten yet, has she?" So she ordered 2 more dishes and asked the waiter to send them upstairs. An hour later, the door of the guest room upstairs opened and Xianghua came out. Seeing the two of them downstairs, he went downstairs and returned the information to Bai Xiao. Then he went back to his room. What's wrong with him? Why does he look so weird? After drinking half a bowl of soup, Bai Xiao asked the waiter to clear the dishes on the table. She looked at Du Fan and asked, "Didn't you go to contact those people? Why are only the 2 of you coming back with the young master?" Du Fan looked at Xianghua's back and said, "Those people went into the mountain." Upon hearing this, Bai Xiao gasped. "Are you serious? They really went into the mountain? Isn't that a little too bold?" Du Fan stood up and went upstairs. "I'm going back to rest." Before Bai Xiao could say anything, he went upstairs first. Seeing that they were acting weird, Bai Xiao ignored them. She put away the information and planned to return it to them first. After all, they had told her that there was only 1 copy and she should return it after reading it. As the night deepened, the inn became quiet. However, at midnight, Xianghua opened the door and was about to go out when he saw a figure sitting on the railing in front of the door and looking at him. "Are you trying to cause trouble for Master?" Du Fan stared at him and asked coldly. Xianghua was silent for a long time before he said, "It is precisely because I don't want to cause trouble for young Master that I plan to go alone at night. There's no need to go. You won't see a single living person even if you go back. Even if you go, you'll just be adding another dead person. That place is so strange that even Master doesn't want to set foot in it. Why do you want to get involved in it? But I was the one who brought them here. They were originally going to follow that group of people. Even if you didn't lead them, they would still enter the mountain. You and Master have already reminded them. They were the ones who stubbornly insisted on going to their deaths. They can't blame anyone else. Hearing this, Xianghua remained silent and stood still. Since you're already following Master, you have to follow Master's orders. Whether those people live or die, Master didn't say, so you don't have to care. After saying this, he got up and returned to his room. Xianghua stood at the door for a long time. He looked in the direction of the 100 Years Mountain and sighed softly before he turned and went back into his room. The next morning, Fengzhou was eating downstairs. At another table, Bai Xiao and Xianghua were drinking tea. After a while, Du Fan, who had gone out to inquire about the news, came in. Master, none of those who went into the mountain came out again. They're all inside. Yes. She responded. In her mind, she was thinking, what's going on with that family? Even if it was written in the information, it was only some guesses and some superficial things. It didn't mention anything about what was inside. Chapter 802. Someone asked me to give this to you. A 7 or 8-year-old child ran in, but before he could get close to Fengzhou, he was stopped by Du Fan. Let him come over. Fengzhou gestured for him to step aside. Someone asked me to give this to you. The child came in front of Fengzhou and handed him something, but his eyes were fixed on the snacks on the table and he swallowed his saliva. Seeing this, Fengzhou took the thing and asked the waiter to pack some snacks while asking, "Who gave this to you?" It was a man in black. He said that he would give it to a big brother in red. Hearing this, Fengzhou opened it to take a look. When he saw the content of the invite-like post, his eyes moved slightly. Young master, the snacks are ready. The waiter brought the snacks over. Fengzhou took it and handed it to the child, "For you." "Thank you." The child thanked him happily, took the packed snacks, and ran out quickly. She held the red invitation in one hand and tapped the table with the other. She looked outside with a thoughtful expression. She did not speak, and the 3 people beside her did not dare to ask. In the end, Bai Xiao could not help but ask, "Young master, what is that?" The family in the 100 Years Mountain sent an invitation. They said that they would hold a banquet for us in the evening, she said casually and tapped the red invitation lightly on the table. When the 3 people heard this, they were stunned. How did they know that we live here? Bai Xiao asked in a daze, then she whispered, "They can't have been secretly following us, right? Sending an invitation for no reason." "I don't think it's a good thing," Du Fan said. "Well, then tell me, why would they send this thing?" Fengzhou raised his eyebrows and looked at him. Du Fan paused for a moment, then said, "It's very likely that they have their eyes on Master." Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and said lazily, "Even if they send an invitation, it doesn't mean that I have to go, right? But why would they have their eyes on me? I'm a little curious." "Young master, it's better not to go there. That place is full of ghosts. If you go there, you might not be able to come out," Bai Xiao said in a low voice. Just thinking about that place made his hair stand on end. "What are you nervous about?" "I didn't say I was going. Just throw this post away." She stood up and went back to her room. She really didn't want to go. That place looked like a ghost town. Who would want to go to such a ghost town for no reason? He was afraid that he would come back with some ghostly aura. Because she didn't plan to go, she threw this matter to the back of her mind. After returning to her room, she entered the space to cultivate, not taking this matter to heart. When the 3 people downstairs heard that she was not going, they ignored her. Only Xianghua was holding the card and wondering if the 20 or so people were still alive. He was a little hesitant, but he also knew that Fengzhou didn't say anything. He couldn't cause trouble for her. After all, even nascent soul cultivators didn't come out after going in, let alone her. Fengjiu was cultivating in his room, while Xianghua and Du Fan waited downstairs. Bai Xiao said that he was going out to buy something, but he didn't come back until evening. The two of them felt that something was wrong. One of them stayed and the other went out to look for him, but they couldn't find him. Finally, they knocked on Fengjiu's door. Fengjiu, who opened the door, still looked a little sleepy. She looked at the two people in front of the door with a dignified expression and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. What's wrong? Chapter 803. Disappeared. What do you mean? Her eyes darkened and her voice turned cold. In the afternoon, he said that he was going out to buy some things and would be back soon. Who knew that he would be gone until now? I went out to look for him but couldn't find him. I asked around but there was no news. Du Fan frowned and said, I even went to the city gates to ask around. However, the guards at the gates said that there were too many people going in and out so they couldn't remember. Fengjiu walked out and went downstairs. When he arrived outside the inn, he looked at the sky and his eyes moved slightly. Young master, do you think that the people from the 100 Years Mountain captured him? Xianghua asked. She looked at him and asked, besides this, could it be anyone else? They had only been here for a few days and had not made any enemies. Moreover, the person they captured was Xiao Bai. Besides the people from the 100 Years Mountain, who else could it be? It seems that they were worried that I wouldn't go, so they captured Xiao Bai. What's their purpose in forcing me to go? That day, she and Xiao Bai had entered the array and the black-robed man had asked them to leave. But today, she didn't go and they came looking for her. It's getting dark. Mistress, should we go? Du Fan asked as his gaze fell on her. Go, how can we not go? Since they've captured someone to force me to go, if I don't go, would they let it go? Her voice was cold as she said. She then said to the two of them, the two of you can stay here. Mistress, I'll go with you. Du Fan said. I'll go too. Xianghua also opened his mouth and looked at her, there's no reason for us to stay here if young master goes. Moreover, I also want to see if they're dead or alive. Seeing this, she glanced at the two of them and said, then let's go. With that said, she brought the two of them to the 100 Years Mountain. When they arrived at the 100 Years Mountain, the sky had already turned completely dark. When they were about to ascend the mountain, Du Fan lit a fire to illuminate the path. The air was still filled with a gloomy aura. Occasionally, a chilly wind would blow, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Fengjiu, who was walking in front, had a normal expression. It was just ghosts. It wasn't like she hadn't encountered them before. It was just that this place gave her a strange and dangerous feeling. She didn't want to set foot in here. Unexpectedly, she didn't want to come, but the people here wanted her to come. Since that was the case, she wanted to see what kind of ghost place it was. Would a voice drifted through the night, accompanied by a gust of chilly wind. It sounded like a ghost's howl, echoing faintly in the ears of the three. Before the voice had finished, the surrounding trees and bushes rustled, as if someone was walking, but they couldn't see the figure. Some footsteps that didn't belong to them sounded behind the three of them. They were messy but clear. Xianghua, who had walked to the back of the group, glared. He pulled out his sword and swept it behind him. Following the attack of the sword chi, there seemed to be a panicked voice. With a whoosh, the sword chi cut through the night sky. The footsteps behind them disappeared once again, as if they had never appeared. However, after the footsteps disappeared, a strange laughter faintly sounded in the air. That laughter came closer and closer until it seemed to stop right beside them. Chapter 804. Do you know the way? It's okay, I know the way. I'll lead the way. The faint words were accompanied by a chilling aura. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she let out a shrill scream. That shrill scream almost instantly cut through the night and broke the gloomy atmosphere inside. In an instant, the sound of a bird flapping its wings and flying rang out in the night. Du Fan and Xianghua's bodies were tense. It could be said that the two of them had been in a state of high tension ever since they stepped into this place. Especially when they saw the strange and shocking white-colored ghost that had suddenly appeared before Fengzhou, they were terrified to the point their hearts jerked. They were just about to shout loudly when they saw Fengzhou flip her palm, and then a clump of flames caught the ghost off guard and incinerated it into nothingness. Seeing this scene, the moment they relaxed, they were even more shocked because they noticed that there was no aura of spiritual power surging from her body. However, at that moment, a cluster of flames surged from her hand and burned the ghost at a speed that was too fast for them to cover their ears. The ghost didn't even have time to escape. They thought that women would always be afraid of ghosts, and this kind of fear came from the bone marrow and was almost instinctive. But they never expected that she would be extremely calm as she looked at the ghost, and with a wave of her hand, she annihilated the ghost. "If I want to come in, do I need you to lead the way?" Fengzhou coldly snorted. She raised her hand, extinguished the flames, and continued walking forward. The two people behind her didn't dare to stay and quickly followed behind her. At this moment, Du Fan realized that his master's cultivation in arrays was above his. He had to look left and right carefully, but she walked casually. However, every point she stepped on was the eye of the array. The array that was originally changing only changed in the first part of the path, but it was almost like a straight road in the back. It was as if she had destroyed a ghost with a wave of her hand. On the way down, other than the strange noises that came from the night, there were no more ghosts around them. Even the footsteps that they had heard before did not appear again. When they walked out of the maze formation and arrived inside, they still saw a dense fog spreading out in the darkness. However, within this fog, there were faint green ghostly flames leaping about. They didn't know if it was an illusion, but Xianghua and Du Fan saw that in the night, whether it was in the air, on the ground, on the trees, or in the bushes, there were faintly discernible ghosts. There were so many of them that they sucked in a breath of cold air. Fengzhou, who was in front, indifferently glanced around and saw all the ghosts. The chaotic and faint cries echoed in the air and drifted with the night wind. At this moment, the fog in front of them seemed to be pushed aside by someone. It automatically moved to the sides, revealing a winding path. A black-cloaked person appeared on the path. He raised his head slightly and looked at Fengzhou. "Please come in." That person turned slightly and gestured for them to enter. Fengzhou didn't look carefully that day. Now that he looked again, he realized that this black-cloaked person was actually a ghost cultivator. Chapter 805. They followed the ghost cultivator inside. Along the way, they encountered many floating ghosts. Perhaps it was because the ghost cultivator was leading the way, but the ghosts did not dare to approach them. However, they still stared at the three of them. As they walked, clusters of green willow, the wisps lit up on both sides of the originally dark path, illuminating the winding path. In the fog, they seemed to be able to vaguely see a mansion in front of them. The mansion seemed to be right in front of them, but after walking for some distance, they still could not close the distance. Xianghua, who was following behind Fengzhou, glanced at the floating ghosts. A few familiar faces made his heart tremble. When he looked again, they were all dressed in white. Their hair was disheveled, and some of their white clothes were stained with blood. They floated in the air as if they did not know where to go. He noticed that the ghosts inside seemed to be unable to walk out of this mountain and could only float on it. The ghost cultivator in front of them stopped and pushed open the door of the mansion. A dry and calm voice came from the ghost cultivator's mouth. "My master has already prepared a feast to entertain you. Please." Fingzhou looked up and saw that there were only 2 words written on the mansion, Gui Mansion. She thought, it should be the ghost mansion. There were 2 stone lions at the door, and 2 red lanterns swaying gently in the night wind were hanging on the left and right of the door. The mahogany door was open, and the light inside was dim. The light was not strong, but it was still visible. When they walked in, they no longer saw ghosts, but ghost cultivators. The ghost cultivators were guarding the mansion like guards. There were men and women, and the women were like ordinary maids in a family. They were carrying things in their hands and walking back and forth, looking very busy. Under the ghost cultivator's lead, they walked all the way until they arrived at a bamboo forest. There was a banquet set up there, and the wisps were embellished in the forest, floating like enlarged fireflies. At the side of the long banquet table, the unconscious Bai Xiao was lying on a chair, and on the main seat was a seductive woman in a sexy red dress. The scant amount of clothing couldn't cover her voluptuous figure. The fabric on her body only vaguely covered her chest and buttocks. Even though the rest of her body was covered by a light veil, she was still nearly naked. Her long legs were crossed and her snow-white slender legs were propped up on another chair. Her entire body was lazily leaning against the chair. Her fingers, which were dyed with black nail polish, were gently twirling the strands of hair that fell over her cheeks and playing with them. The woman was as beautiful as a seductress. The makeup on her face was smoky, which was rarely used by women. This makeup made her look even more seductive and charming. She looked to be about 25 years old, and her figure was extremely mature and voluptuous. Her skin was extremely white, and under the contrast of the red gauze, it was as flawless as white jade. Her entire body was emitting a seductive and dangerous aura. This was a stunningly beautiful woman who was enchanting, charming, and seductive. She was also a dangerous, stunningly beautiful woman. Moreover, this was a stunningly beautiful woman that she couldn't help but admire and praise. Even though she knew that the 2 of them were almost enemies in this situation, she couldn't help but say that the moment she saw this woman, she couldn't bring herself to hate her. It was because she was too beautiful. She was so beautiful that it was pleasing to the eye and made one's heart bloom with joy. Chapter 806. While Fingzhou was sizing up the girl was also sizing up Fingzhou. She liked to wear red and had seen many people wearing red, but there were not many who could bring out the flavor of red. The young man in front of her seemed to be one of them. He had an outstanding appearance and a charming temperament, but he also had an innate noble aura. His words and actions were free and easy, with a trace of laziness and elegance. It had to be said that the first time she saw this young man, she felt that he was quite pleasing to the eye. So pleasing to the eye that she had the urge to make him stay to accompany her. Wanyan Qianhua, what about you? When the ghost cultivator who was waiting at the side saw that she really said his name, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. He glanced at her and saw that she was looking at the red-clothed young man with interest, so he stood quietly at the side. My name is Fingzhou. She smiled and walked forward to pull out a chair to sit down. I originally thought that the owner of this 100 Years Mountain would be a terrible old man. I didn't expect that it would be such a beautiful girl like Big Sister. Seeing Big Sister who is as beautiful as a flower, the anger in my heart has dissipated quite a bit. He, your little mouth seems to be smeared with honey. Calling me Big Sister this and Big Sister that makes my heart burst with joy. She lightly covered her red lips and chuckled. Her slender finger pointed and winked coquettishly. She seemed to be angry and smiling at the same time. It was very moving. I rarely call someone Big Sister. Big Sister is the first. Who asked Big Sister to like me? The more I look at you, the more pleasing I find you. I haven't met someone as interesting as you in a long time. She looked at Fingzhou with a smile in her beautiful eyes. Not only is your appearance and temperament outstanding, but you are also more courageous than others. Most importantly, you are to my liking. Xianghua, Du Fan, and the ghost cultivator saw that the two of them were actually familiar with each other and were chatting and laughing. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. They were somewhat stunned and also somewhat confused. Why was the situation so different from what they imagined? These two should be meeting for the first time, right? Why did this scene seem like sisters who hadn't seen each other for a long time? They stood at the side and watched the two of them chatting as if there was no one else around. Occasionally, they would chuckle and blend into the scene. No matter how they looked at it, it was quite harmonious. However, that was only the two of them. For the three people standing at the side, they felt that this scene was extremely strange. Because the two people's tempers were originally a little strange, but when these two people with strange tempers met, they hit it off immediately. Oh. In other words, elder sister asked me to come over because she knew that the Qingfeng sword was with me. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at Xianghua. It seemed that he must have let it slip to those people. Otherwise, how would they know? That's right. The Emerald Edge sword was originally an ancient divine sword. It said that it's quite good at killing ghosts. I wonder if that's true. She asked with great interest. Yes, it's true. Fengjiu nodded his head. As he spoke, he had already taken out the Qingfeng sword and placed it on the table, placing it in front of her. Elder sister, do you want to try? Seeing this, Xianghua and Du Fan's hearts suddenly jumped, and their eyes narrowed. She actually handed the Qingfeng sword over just like that. Wasn't she afraid that the woman would take it for herself? Seeing this, the ghost cultivator at the side also glanced at Fengjiu with a strange gaze. Seeing this, the reclining Wanyan Qianhua couldn't help but purse his lips and smile. He took the Qingfeng sword from the 7-star sword sheath and opened it slightly to take a look. A green light shot out. Chapter 807. Hearing this, Fengjiu curled his lips into a smile. Although I just met you tonight, it feels like I've known you for a long time. From your bearing, I can tell that you're not from the Green Ting Kingdom. After chatting with you for a while, I know that you were only interested in the Qingfeng sword. Since I dared to push the Qingfeng sword to you, I believe that you won't take it away from me. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua chuckled. I think you have become a spirit. My brothers are not as strange as you. Then let me tell you one more thing. Although I like to dress as a man, I am not a man. I am a woman. She winked at her and said slyly. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. Ah. A woman. Where are your breasts? As he spoke, his gaze fell straight on her flat chest. With a strange expression, he asked, You're so flat. Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She glanced at Xianghua and Du Fan, who lowered their heads in embarrassment. She coughed lightly and said, Of course I can't compare to you, sister. He, of course. She covered her red lips and chuckled. She only took out a section of the Qingfeng sword. She glanced at it and did not touch it. Instead, she returned it to her. Keep it. Since the Azure Edge sword is an ancient divine sword, it naturally isn't something that just anyone can obtain. Since you were able to obtain the Azure Edge sword, you naturally have it recognize you as its master. I won't have any ideas about this sword, because I discovered that you're even more interesting than this sword. Hearing this, she was stunned for a moment. She chuckled. This is the first time someone has compared me with a sword. I don't know if I should cry or laugh. This means that your charm is greater than the ancient divine sword. Of course you should laugh. She sat up straight and poured 2 cups of wine. Today, I have decided that you are my little sister. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and raised her cup. Sister, this cup is for you. She raised her head and drank it. Good. Wanyan Qianhua also smiled and raised her cup. After drinking this cup of wine, you will be my, Wanyan Qianhua's little sister in the future. She also drank it. Other than Bai Xiao, who was sleeping like a pig and snoring, the sober Xiang Hua and Du Fan did not know how to describe the scene in front of them. They thought it would be a fierce battle. Who knew that it would become a ceremony in the end? That's right, ninth sister, those 20 people are still being hung. They were the ones who told us that you have the Qingfeng sword in exchange for their lives. I originally wanted to teach them a lesson and not let them die. Since you are here, why don't I leave them to you to deal with them? They're still alive. Xiang Hua looked at Feng Zhou in surprise. Young Master. Feng Zhou frowned and glanced at Xiang Hua. Xiang Hua, don't forget who you are. Do you think I will treat them well? Xiang Hua's body stiffened. That's right. They betrayed the young master. In order to survive, they told him about the Qingfeng sword. It was already a capital offense. How could he beg his master to save their lives? I have never shown mercy to betrayers. Sister, do what you need to do. She looked at Wanyan Qianhua and said. Chapter 808. 10,000 Ghost Banner. When Fingzhou heard this, he could not help but widen his eyes. Is it that little banner that looks like a small flag and is very powerful just by waving it around? So that's the use of all those ghosts outside. Oh. You've heard of it. Wanyan Qianhua looked at her in surprise. Logically speaking, no one should know about this place. I heard that the 10,000 Ghost Banner can summon the wind and rain after collecting the souls of tens of thousands of ghosts, causing the weather to change. In short, it's very powerful. I really didn't expect you to know about it. That's right, it is indeed so. Moreover, the more powerful the ghost, the more powerful it is. As she spoke, her hand moved and a black flag appeared in her hand. Look. She gestured to Fingzhou and then waved the flag in her hand. The ghosts outside flew back one by one and entered her small flag with a whoosh. Fingzhou's heart trembled when he saw this. He saw the white ghosts float in from outside and enter the small flag. The flag did not seem to grow bigger. It was just a small flag, but it surged with a cold and gloomy aura. As the flag danced, the bamboo in the bamboo forest also rustled in the wind. Too powerful. So many ghosts have been sucked in. Her eyes lit up and she said, Big sister, your flag is really a treasure. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua smiled and said, If you didn't say treasure, I wouldn't have thought about it. Since I've already recognized you as my little sister, how could I not give you a greeting gift? She raised her hand and put away the flag. Then she searched her body and finally took out a pendant from somewhere. Come a bit closer. She waved her hand. Fengzhou stood up and walked forward. When he arrived in front of her, he saw that she tied the pendant around her waist. She looked at it and saw that it was a very exquisite pendant. It was decorated with a few jade beads. Below it was a small purple bell and a small gourd. The gourd looked like it was made of wood, but it was very exquisitely carved. It was very small and there seemed to be an indecipherable pattern on it. Big sister, what kind of pattern is on this gourd? She asked curiously. Don't look down on these two things. These two things are both treasures. In the future, when you go out, if you meet any evil creatures, even if you can't see them, the little bell at your waist will ring to warn you. In addition, this small gourd was carved from a Jiuhua spirit peach and spirit wood, and a talisman master was asked to inscribe runes on it. With this treasure, no demons or ghosts would dare to approach you. Moreover, after you drip your blood on it to claim ownership, this small gourd can be used to collect ghosts. Ordinary ghosts would melt into nourishment after 6 hours. No matter how formidable they are, they wouldn't be able to last a day. Feng Zhou's eyes glowed with excitement because of her words. She looked at the ornament on her waist with a curious and excited face. Sister, thank you for your gift. I like it so much. It's good that you like it. Then shouldn't you give big sister a greeting gift? She winked at her and asked. Greeting gift. She thought for a moment and said, I don't have many magic weapons that I can take out. The only thing that I can take out is probably this. She took out 10 bottles of medicine from her space and placed them in front of her as if she was presenting a treasure. Chapter 809. Medicine. Wanyan Qianhua was stunned for a moment. She didn't have much hope. After all, she was too young. What kind of medicine could she refine? However, when she opened a bottle and took a whiff, she couldn't help but be slightly stunned. She looked at Fengzhou and asked, What level are you at? She grinned proudly. High-level medicine sage. Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. She opened her mouth and then laughed happily. I've found a treasure. I actually recognized a medicine sage as my younger sister. Ha ha ha, a medicine sage in her teens. She has a bright future ahead of her. As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled her over and said, Jiu Mei, come. Let me tell you. Next time, you should refine a bottle of beautifying medicine for me. It's best if it can make my face more beautiful. Upon hearing this, Fengzhou's eyes lit up. She said, Sister, I've wanted to make this for a long time. Let me tell you, medicine is not as good as elixirs in terms of beautifying one's face, so I've been learning how to refine elixirs recently. I've found more than 10 kinds of elixirs that can beautify one's face. I plan to refine the beautifying elixir when I go back. I'll send it to you when I'm done. Come. Let's go back to the courtyard to chat. It's too cold here at night. She held her hand and went back to the courtyard. She instructed the ghost cultivator behind them to take good care of Du Fan and the others. That night, Fengzhou and Wanyan Qianhua chatted for the entire night. They only went to bed at dawn. Bai Xiao also woke up at dawn. However, she was a little confused. She didn't know how she ended up here. However, when she saw that Du Fan and Xiang Hua were also here, she didn't make a fuss about it. However, they didn't see Fengzhou for the entire day. When night came, the three of them were told not to leave the residence at night. Bai Xiao didn't pay much attention to it. When she opened the door of the residence and planned to go out for a walk, she was frightened by the ghosts that were floating all over the mountain. Fengzhou stayed there for 3 whole days. On the morning of the 4th day, he bid farewell to Wanyan Qianhua and left with Du Fan and the others. When she walked down the 100 Years Mountain and turned back to look at the mountain peak, she couldn't help but sigh. Even she didn't expect that on this trip, there would be another elder sister. However, knowing this elder sister was indeed an advantage. It was one thing for her to be unfathomable, and it was just as she had guessed. She was not from the Qingting kingdom. She had thought that she was from a first-class country, but she did not expect that she was from one of the 8 great empires. Coming from such a powerful empire, it was no wonder that Sky City would have such strength and cultivation. She retracted her gaze and looked at the 3 people beside her. Finally, her gaze fell on Xiang Hua. Xiang Hua, Du Fan. Young master. Master. The 2 of them took a step forward and responded. Xiang Hua, those people in the Tianyuan Palace are all dead. You're the only one left. I don't know how many people are lurking outside. In short, I'll leave the matters of the Tianyuan Palace to you and Du Fan to manage and expand. However, you must remember that the reorganized Tianyuan Palace is not allowed to do evil. If there are any evil deeds, I'll hold you accountable. Yes. The 2 of them responded respectfully. In addition, find out the whereabouts of the descendants of the Chu family and see if there's any news. As for little Bai. Chapter 8:10. Yes. The 3 of them replied and looked at her. Du Fan asked, Mistress, are you going back to the College of Stars and Clouds? How are we going to find you in the future? The 3 of you have communication jade tubes in your Qinkuan bags. If you have any problems, you can send me a message directly. If you can solve it by yourself, you don't have to find me. As she spoke, she threw the flying feather and sat on it, looking down at the three of them. Xianghua, after you find a place to stay, go to the Phoenix Dynasty and bring Luo Yu and the others here. Yes, Xianghua replied. He looked at her and nodded before leaving on Flying Feather. Let's go too. I know a place that is the starting point of the Tianyuan Palace. I'll take you there. Du Fan looked at the two of them and said. The two of them nodded and left with him. This matter was quietly resolved. The Tianyuan Palace, which had been in an uproar recently, seemed to have disappeared again, gradually fading out of everyone's sight. No one knew that the Tianyuan Palace was like a new tree bud, growing new branches and leaves, waiting for the right time to strike. A few days later, Fengjiu returned to the sect and went straight to the main peak. Dean, Vice Dean, the matter has been resolved. She sat down at the table where the two of them were sitting and poured a cup of water for herself. Seeing her leisurely without the slightest hint of fatigue, the two of them looked at each other and said in surprise, "We received news that the people from the Tianyuan Palace went to the 100 Years Mountain and didn't come out. You also went to that place. The 100 Years Mountain." I went in. She nodded, then lowered her voice and said, "However, it's best not to go there. Especially the students of the school, don't go in out of curiosity. Otherwise, you won't be able to come out. Is there really something strange about that place?" The Vice Dean asked. Fengjiu looked at him and smiled. "Vice Dean, I'm sure that even if you went in, if the owner of that place didn't let you go, you wouldn't be able to come out. However, don't ask me about this matter. I promised that I wouldn't say anything." She waved her hand and stood up after drinking 2 cups of tea. "I'll go back and rest first. I'm exhausted." When the two of them saw this, they couldn't help but draw a few black lines across their foreheads. Looking at her energetic appearance, where did she look tired? However, he didn't ask her to stay any longer. Instead, he watched her leave. After returning to her abode, Fengjiu took a bath and changed into the academy's uniform. Instead of resting, she began to research the face-nourishing pill. This research lasted for several days. As she began her trial, the cauldron would explode from time to time. The commotion was so great that even the 2 alchemists on Pill Peak were alarmed. The two of them personally came to see what was going on. Why would Fengjiu's alchemy furnace always explode? Coincidentally, she bumped into him, who had just returned from changing his pill furnace. "Fengjiu, is there something wrong with you? How could a good alchemy furnace explode in just a few days? Was there something wrong with the technique? Do you need us to give you some pointers?" When she heard this, her eyes lit up. She immediately pulled the two of them. "Perfect, perfect. Instructor, I'm refining a face-nourishing pill. Come in and help me see where I went wrong. I've already wasted several cauldrons of pills." What? Face-nourishing pill? The two of them were stunned. What kind of pill was a face-nourishing pill? They hadn't refined it before. Just as they were about to speak, Fengjiu half pushed, half pulled them into his abode and into his alchemy room. Chapter 8:11. You prodigal son. The two of them glared and cursed. With a pained expression, they went forward to pick up the spirit medicine, then put it down. Looking at the dregs of the spirit medicine on the ground and the smell of burnt spirit medicine still lingered in the air, they looked even more pained. These are all worth thousands of gold coins. The academy also needs a lot of contribution points to exchange for them, but you actually used so many precious spirit medicines to refine some face-nourishing pill? This is simply a prodigal son, too prodigal. Fengjiu was a little stunned. Seeing the two's pained expressions, as if they couldn't wait to take away the spirit medicines on the table, she couldn't help but smile. "Instructor, that's because you don't know the benefits of my face-nourishing pill. She walked forward and explained to the two with a smile, "My face nourishing pill is specially refined for women. After the pill is formed, it has the effect of beautifying and brightening the skin, restoring a woman's appearance to its most beautiful state. Even if there are scars on the face, it can be healed. Therefore, this pill can be called a face-nourishing pill, but it can also be called a face-nourishing pill. It can preserve a woman's youth and beauty forever. It is a good thing that is hard to come by." She spoke excitedly, but the two alchemists' faces darkened. They shook their heads and sighed, then advised in a meaningful tone, "Fengjiu, you are a good child, a good youth with a bright future. You are the hope of our academy. You must remember that you are a man. We men shouldn't play with those women's toys. Things like this face-nourishing pill, we men shouldn't make them. It's the same as the rouge on a woman's face, it has nothing to do with men." Hearing this, Fengjiu held back her laughter with great difficulty. She originally wanted to say something, but seeing that the two alchemists' faces didn't look too good, and remembering that they didn't know her identity as a woman, she said with a serious face, "Yes, instructor is right, I will remember. Instructor, don't worry, I will definitely not disappoint you. I will definitely bring glory to our academy so that the other academies won't dare to look down on us." "Good, good, 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 good." When the two of them heard this, they immediately became excited and smiled. "We knew that you were a good kid with ambition. Not bad, not bad." They nodded, looking at him as if he were their own child. One of them said, "Look, you went out a while ago. You must have suffered a lot. You've lost a lot of weight, and when you got back, you buried your head in pill concocting. You look so wan and sallow. Come, come. I have a piece of meat Lingji. Take it and have the ovens cook it for you. It'll be good for your body. I still have the spirit ginseng from the Zhilao mountain. It's aged. Look at how haggard you are. Come, 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 take it. You can eat it tomorrow. Just cut a few slices at a time. You can't eat too much. That's right, that's right. You should properly nourish yourself. Normally, we didn't have the chance to come and see you. We only cared about refining pills by ourselves. Fortunately, you're an obedient child with outstanding talent. You even know how to study by yourself. That's why we didn't delay your progress." Chapter 8:12. Good, good. We believe that you won't disappoint us. As the two spoke, they took a sip and realized that it was wine. The moment it entered their mouths, the rich spiritual energy spread out. They couldn't help but praise, "Good wine. Since there's no more tea, I'll pour wine for you too. Since you like it, you should drink a few more cups." She smiled as she poured wine for them. The two listened happily and drank happily. Unknowingly, they drank too much. By the time they left, their steps were unsteady. After sending the two of them off, she kept the meat Lingji mushroom and old ginseng that the two of them had given her and returned to the pill refining room to study her beauty-nourishing pill. When she was engrossed in one thing, she would be completely focused on it and would not be able to divert her attention to anything else. This study took her a few months. In the past few months, there was a faint sound of thunder on top of Elixir Peak, but it seemed to be dispersing. Sometimes, the sound of an exploding elixir furnace could be heard echoing on Elixir Peak. In the past few months, even Guan Shilin and Yi Jing could not see her. She seemed to be wasting her time on the beauty pill. However, at this time, there was still half a month before the new year. The students of each courtyard were preparing to go home. However, Fengjiu was still in seclusion on Dan Peak, on the main peak. "I heard that she's been in seclusion for a few months. Has she not come out yet?" The dean looked at the vice dean and asked. "No, I've gone to check on her a few times. Only the three beasts are guarding outside. I haven't even seen her shadow." Last month, when young Master Imo-chan came back, he went to look for her. He didn't see her either. As the vice dean spoke, he recalled the expression on Imo-chan's face when he received the clothes from Fingjo. His thoughts drifted away. He paused for a moment. Seeing that there was no one else around, he looked at the dean and asked, "Dean, what do you think young Master Imo-chan is doing?" "I don't know either." The dean shook his head and said, "Young people like him should deal with their own matters. We can't interfere." "That's true. However, I'm afraid that this Imo-chan will fall into the hands of Fingjo in the future. The hardest thing for a man is love." He shook his head and sighed, as if he was deeply moved. Hearing this, the dean couldn't help but laugh. "So, you also had such a period when you were young. Why didn't you mention it?" He. Don't mention it, don't mention it." He waved his hand and said, "I just remembered that I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." He didn't wait for a response and quickly left. However, before he could walk out of the courtyard, he heard a loud rumble in the sky, shaking the entire mountain gate. He was shocked and hurriedly held the gate and shouted, "What's going on? What was that sound? Could it be thunder from the Alchemy Institution again?" The dean also walked out. At this moment, a student quickly ran in and reporting to the dean, "Vice Dean, it's thunder from the main peak of the Alchemy Institution. I saw lightning and thunder striking down together. It's very powerful. The entire mountain is shaking. Some students have already rushed over to see what's going on." Hearing this, the dean shook his head and smiled. "I knew it had something to do with the Alchemy Institution. The only person in the Alchemy Institution who could cause such a huge commotion is probably Fingjo. I just don't know what she's doing. Why would she attract such a huge lightning strike?" Chapter 8:13. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. In the next moment, they quickly rushed towards Pill Peak. At this moment, 2 more bolts of lightning struck down from the sky. 3 bolts in a row, rumbling loudly. A pill that could attract lightning had to be at least a level 5 pill. She had only been in contact with pills for a year. Could it be that she could actually refine a level 5 pill? When they thought of this possibility, waves of shock surged in their hearts. If that was really the case, her talent was too shocking. At the same time, in another courtyard on the main peak, Imo-chan also saw the lightning strike the Pill Institute. His eyes moved slightly, and he also got up and headed towards Pill Peak. Guan Shilin and Yi Jing knew that it was Fingjo who had caused the commotion, so they also headed towards the Pill Institute. Naturally, the 2 pill masters from Pill Peak and the pill ancestor who had yet to show his face were not missing. It could be said that the pill ancestor had arrived at Fingjo's cave faster than anyone else. This was because the moment the pill was formed, an unconcealable medicinal fragrance filled the air. The rich medicinal fragrance wafted in the air, and coupled with the lightning, he immediately knew that a level 5 pill or above had been produced. Thus, he immediately rushed over to Fingjo's cave. In the cave, Fingjo held 3 pills in her hands. 2 of them were finished products, while the last one had become an unknown strange pill. She casually put it into her space. "After researching for so long, I've finally figured it out." She looked at the pill patterns on the 2 pills, then looked at the pill aura on them. She was even more satisfied. "I'll get someone to send one to my sister, and keep the other for now. Now that I've refined this beauty pill, I just need to adjust it a little, then I can refine a pill that can make grandfather younger." She muttered to herself. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. Just as she was thinking of taking advantage of this momentum to refine a beauty pill that could be used by men, she heard someone calling her from outside. Thus, she put away the pills and walked out. "Who is it?" Her hair was messy and her clothes were wrinkled. There were patches of black and white on her face. It was unknown whether she was stained with some kind of ash or medicinal juice, but the smell of medicine also spread in the air as she walked out. "You're Fingzhou." The middle-aged man frowned as he sized up Fingzhou. "Yes, who are you?" She nodded and scratched her hair. She wanted to use her fingers to comb her hair so that it wouldn't be rude. However, she didn't see that her current image couldn't be worse. "I'm Huang Danzong from Pill Peak. Did you refine a level 5 pill? Quick, show it to me." His tone was urgent, and his face was filled with anticipation and anxiety. Hearing this, Fingzhou didn't think much of it. Thinking that he was probably just excited to see her concoct a 5th level pill, he took out one of the bottles and poured out the pill. "It's level 5." She opened her palm and was about to tell him the attributes and effects of this pill when she saw him take the pill from her hand. Seeing this, she only frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. "It's a level 5 pill. This smell is from icicle flower. And the smell of platycodon, good, very good. This color, this smell, they're all top-notch. Good, very good." Chapter 8:14. "Master Huang, this is the pill I refined." She stood in front of him, smiling as she spoke. However, if one looked closely, they would be able to see that there was no smile in her eyes. On the contrary, there was a trace of coldness. "I know it's the pill you refined, but I want to take it back and study it." "That's right, what pill is this? Where did you get the pill recipe? Write down the pill recipe and pill refining steps for me to see." Hearing that matter-of-fact tone, Fingzhou chuckled. "I didn't even know someone had the right to take away the pill I refined. Furthermore, you're asking me for the pill recipe and pill refining steps. Master Huang, your surname shouldn't be Huang, it should be Niu." "What do you mean?" "I'm taking your pill back to study because I think highly of you. Don't think you're amazing just because you refined a 5th level pill. You're just a new student of the pill department." His face darkened and was filled with displeasure. However, he held the pill tightly in his hand. It looked like he had no intention of returning it. "Of course, I'm talking about how thick-skinned you are. Only Niu Pai can compare to you." Fengzhou pursed his lips. "Furthermore, I'm not that familiar with you, right? Give it back to me." She stretched out her hand, indicating for him to return the pill. In her heart, she was thinking that when other people were holding medicinal pills, even if they were evaluating the grade of the medicinal pill, they would also have to use something to pick it up. She was a person who refined medicinal pills. It was one thing for the medicinal pills to pass through her hands, but this person was good. He directly grabbed it with his hands. She didn't know if his hands were clean. With a medicinal pill held in the palm of his hand like that, who would dare to eat it later? Thinking of this, her face darkened. She had spent so much effort refining something, but it was dirted by someone. He even wanted to snatch it away. Hee, how interesting. "Return what? Didn't you hear me say that I'm taking it back to study? Can't you hear me or what? As the pill department's master alchemist, could it be that I can't take a pill from you? You're too presumptuous. Who taught you how to refine pills?" "The 2 people from the pill department who have been stagnant as pill masters for more than 10 years. Like teacher, like disciple, you're just as ignorant." He didn't care about anything else and just cursed. With a flick of his sleeve, he directly walked past Fingzhou and was about to leave. The dean and the others, who had just arrived, happened to hear these words. Their expressions were extremely ugly, especially Guan Shilin. As her elder brother, he couldn't help but clench his fists when he saw that someone dared to bully his sister, snatch her things, and even boast so shamelessly. He just wanted to rush up and teach this person a lesson. However, he had already passed the age of impulsiveness, and he knew to think twice before he acted. Not only him, but there were also the 2 alchemists from the alchemy department, as well as the dean and vice dean, as well as the students who had been attracted by the 3 bolts of heavenly lightning. Thus, he really couldn't teach anyone a lesson in this situation. However, if the dean and the vice dean didn't handle this matter well, he didn't mind teaching Huang Danzong a lesson afterwards. At this moment, the faces of the 2 instructors from the Academy of Alchemy were slightly pale. They looked embarrassed, ashamed, and angry. They were really, really sad to be treated like this by someone they respected. Chapter 8:15. Dean, I didn't take his pill. I just want to take it back and study it. His face was dark. Being yelled at by the dean in front of so many people, he felt a little embarrassed. What do you mean study it? That's Fengzhou's pill. Did she allow it? She didn't allow you to take it from her. Huang Danzong, don't forget that you're a grandmaster. A grandmaster should act like a grandmaster. The dean shouted in a deep voice. His face was also very ugly. He didn't expect to see such a shameful thing when he came here. If he didn't come out, he wouldn't have known that such a thing would happen under his watch. If this person was really just an ordinary student, he probably wouldn't have taken the pill. Who would dare to offend a grandmaster alchemist? No need. Since Huang Danzong wants to take it back and study it so much, then take it. However, her eyes moved slightly. She instantly reached out and sealed his acupoints. Taking the pill from his hand, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. Compared to taking it back and studying it, I think you'll understand the medicinal properties of this pill better after you eat it. As soon as she finished speaking, she stuffed the pill into his mouth without giving anyone a chance to stop her. The surrounding people were stunned. They watched as Huang Danzong swallowed the pill with wide eyes. They also watched as Fengzhou clapped her hands and unsealed his acupoints. For a moment, they all looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Wasn't that a level 5 pill? Why did she make him eat it so easily and casually? Level 5 pills were extremely rare in the outside world. Every single one of them was priceless. However, she just raised her hand and stuffed it into Huang Danzong's mouth and made him swallow it. You Fengzhou. You're so presumptuous. As soon as the voice came out, it became a soft female voice. Huang Danzong was shocked. He instinctively reached out to cover his mouth. However, when he covered his mouth, he felt the beard on his chin fall off for no reason. His face paled, and he touched his chin again. His beard, which was not much to begin with, had fallen off completely. Not even his pores could be seen. Even when he touched his chin, he did not feel the prickly sensation of shaving. Along with it, he felt that his skin had become tender, soft, and thin. What kind of medicinal pill is that? At this moment, his male voice was no longer there. What replaced it was a shrill female voice. His Adam's apple had also disappeared. Gradually, even his body seemed to be undergoing a shocking change. Everyone widened their eyes in shock and astonishment. They looked at the pale-faced Huang Danzong. They watched as the beard on his face fell off and his face gradually became younger. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that while he was becoming younger, he was actually changing in the direction of femininity. Originally, Huang Danzong was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. Although his body was not sturdy and tall, he was not weak either. However, right now, Huang Danzong's figure had changed. His waist had become a woman's slender waist, and his chest had bulged suspiciously, forming a woman's figure. Moreover, his skin was so smooth that it could not even compare to an ordinary woman's. This scene caused everyone's jaws to drop. All of them were dumbfounded as they watched with their mouths agape. Chapter 8:16. Ha 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 ha. This is turning into a woman. Ha 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 ha. Serves him right, serves him right. Following Guan Shilin's loud laughter, the students who were attracted by the lightning began to discuss in disbelief. Hiss! What kind of pill is that? It can actually turn a man into a woman. Look at Huang Danzong, he even has a woman's chest. Damn! This is unbelievable. I've never heard of a pill that can change a person's gender. That's right, I'm afraid he won't be able to change back in the future. What kind of pill is that? Why is it so strange? Huang Danzong is from the alchemy school, he should be able to cure it, right? I don't know if he can cure it, but look at him, it's so funny. It's fine if a man doesn't have a beard, but a man with a chest. Hee hee, it's so novel. The pill refined by Feng Jiu is too powerful. Look, if a man took it, he would be like this. If a woman took it, how beautiful would she be? Also, didn't you notice that Huang Danzong has become younger? Yes. If I can get one of those pills and give it to my mother, she'll definitely be happy. If I can get one and give it to Senior Zhou Xian, she'll definitely become more beautiful. At that time, she might even accept my love. Didn't you hear that it's a level 5 pill? It's priceless. After the initial shock, each and every one of them saw the benefits of the medicinal pill and became very interested. However, even though they were all talking, they also knew that the medicinal pill was a 5th-tier medicinal pill and was not something that they could easily obtain. Besides, there was a living example right in front of him. Huang Danzong was a pill ancestor, the highest-ranking person in the academy. However, when he encountered the eccentric Feng Jiu, he didn't care whether the pill was a 5th-tier pill or not, and directly stuffed it into his mouth. Now, a good man had been twisted into a woman. Compared to the shock and astonishment of the crowd and Huang Danzong's panic and anger, only Feng Jiu was watching calmly. He was purely testing the effects of the pill. Looking at Huang Danzong's snake-like body, as well as Sun's smooth, snow-white skin, and youthful appearance, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Not bad. I didn't expect the effects of the medicine to be so good. It's a pity that it was used on a man. If it was used on a woman, she would definitely become a demoness. Feng Jiu. You, hurry up and cure it for me. Cure. Huang Danzong screamed in panic and anger. When his hand touched his originally flat chest, which had become 2 soft places, his face immediately became green and red. I'm sorry, but I don't have the antidote for a pill I just refined. Feng Jiu spread out her hands and said leisurely, moreover, the pills I refine usually don't have an antidote. Huang Danzong, don't pretend to be innocent after getting a bargain. After getting benefits, you're still shouting. You're dozens of years younger. As she spoke, she couldn't help but laugh. Staring at his face and body, she said with a smile, touch it and see. Not only are you younger, your skin has become whiter, smoother, and softer. I bet that if you change into female clothes and walk out, you'll attract a lot of attention. No one will know that you're a man, really. Chapter 8:17. Principal, look at me. Look at how I am right now. It's all because of Feng Jiu. Principal, this is the pill he refined. He must have a way to refine the antidote. Principal. He took a few steps in front of the principal and pulled him, hoping that he would give the order for Feng Jiu to refine the antidote. The principal was pulled by him like this and glanced at his figure that made people unable to look at him directly. His face couldn't help but tremble. He lightly coughed and waved his hand to push him away. Looking at Feng Jiu, he was just about to speak when Feng Jiu's voice sounded out. Principal, you are the principal of Star Cloud Academy. The pill I refined with great difficulty was eaten by one of your subordinates. Shouldn't you compensate me with the spirit medicine? Feng Jiu looked at him and asked with a smile. Hearing this, the principal glared at him. I saw you shove the medicine into his mouth. Why are you asking me for the spirit medicine? That is a 5th level spirit medicine. I used no less than 100 precious spirit medicines to refine it. I don't need to talk about how much was wasted. After refining it with great difficulty, your subordinate Dan Zong took it from my hands without caring about anything else. He even kept it in his hands and didn't give it to me. I was planning on giving that pill to someone. I don't know if his hands were clean after going to the latrine. After being touched by him like that, would my pill still be useful? If I don't give it to him, who should I give it to? Could it be that you also want it? She raised her eyebrows and her words carried a bit of ridicule. This made the principal so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Looking at the Dan Zong's appearance that was neither male nor female, the principal shivered and said, "You gave him the antidote. What do you lack? Later, I'll have the vice principal bring you to get it. There's no way around this." She spread out her hands. "I don't know how to refine the antidote and I can't refine it. It's better to let Huang Donzong research it himself and then refine the antidote. In any case, he is very interested in that pill. This is perfect. He can personally experience it. No one knows the effects of this beauty-nourishing pill better than him. Fingzhou, you're not afraid of being expelled from the academy." At this moment, Huang Donzong's heart finally started to panic. He looked at Fingzhou's expression. It seemed that Fingzhou really wasn't willing to refine the antidote for him. Should he refine the antidote himself? Could he refine it? He didn't have the confidence to do so. Hearing his words, Fingzhou's eyes turned cold and he sneered, "Dean, other than compensating me for the elixirs, I also hope that you can give me an explanation. A dignified pill ancestor stole my elixirs. If I don't punish you, how can I refine elixirs here in the future? Will there be another person who will appear next time and take away the medicinal pills that I have painstakingly refined?" When the surrounding students heard this, they all began to whisper and point at Huang Donzong. Their words were filled with disdain. Seeing this, the principal took a deep breath and said, "Huang Donzong, your actions today are indeed unethical. Logically speaking, you should be expelled from the academy. However, seeing that you have contributed a lot to the academy over the years, I will remove you from your position in charge of the pill department and punish you to face the wall for 3 years. You must research the antidote for yourself and you are not allowed to leave the academy." Principal that he felt as if the sky had collapsed in an instant and he fell limply to the ground. If he had known, he wouldn't have been so greedy. Chapter 8:18. Since when did I cause trouble? It was clearly him who provoked me. She curled her lips and looked towards the Vice Academy head. "Vice Academy head, shall we go get the herbs now?" The Vice Academy head glanced at the principal. Seeing him nod, he said to her, "Let's go." Seeing this, everyone's gazes fell on Huang Donzong, who was sitting on the ground. After sizing him up, they all pursed their lips and smiled as they left. The principal looked at the changed Huang Donzong and sighed, "What do you want me to say about you? There are so many people in the academy, yet you chose to provoke her. Hurry up and go back and think of a way to remedy this. With your current appearance, it's best if you don't walk around too much. It's really..." He couldn't continue speaking. If it was someone who didn't know, it wouldn't have been so bad. After changing his clothes, he really did look like a woman. However, those who were familiar with him only felt awkward and speechless when they saw Huang Donzong like this. If he looked at him too much, his eyes wouldn't be able to take it. He really didn't know what to say. The principal shook his head and left with a flick of his sleeves. Only Guan Shilin and Yi Jing were left behind, as well as the dazed Huang Donzong who didn't know what to do. On the other side, the Vice Academy head, who had brought Fingzhou to get the herbs, returned to the main peak after an hour. He couldn't help but wipe his sweat when he saw the principal. "You're back so soon. Fingzhou's herbs have all been picked." The principal was playing chess with Mo Chen and asked when he saw him return. The Vice Academy head looked at him and opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. "What's wrong? If you have something to say, say it. Don't hesitate. The principal looked at the Vice Academy head's expression with amusement. He placed a chess piece and said to Imo-chin, "It's your turn." Seeing this, the Vice Academy head hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it over. This is the list of herbs she took. The principal glanced at him and took a look. He couldn't help but stare. This bandit. So many aged herbs, and she even took 2 sets of all of them. Why doesn't she just rob someone? With a pained look on his face, he clutched the paper filled with the names of spiritual herbs tightly in his hand. He cursed in his heart. This wastrel, if she were to come a few more times, all the precious spiritual herbs in the academy would be taken away by her. When Imo-chin saw this, he reached out 2 fingers to take the piece of paper and glanced at it calmly. His voice was neither fast nor slow as he said in a gentle voice, "She really knows how to pick things. With so many spiritual herbs, I reckon that she has already taken back the pill with interest. I knew it. Nothing good will come out of meeting her." The dean shook his head and took a sip of tea to calm himself down. "Dean, that Huang Danzong just let him do that?" the deputy director asked, but his eyes were fixed on Imo-chin. He was also an alchemist, and a rather high-ranked one at that. Perhaps, he might be able to cure the effects of the pill, but it would not be easy to ask him for help. He brought this upon himself, so let him bear it. Don't worry about him for now. He's a pill master himself, and a great master at that. If he can't cure the effects of that pill, then we can only let him stay like that forever. Thinking about how he had lost so many precious spiritual herbs because of him, the principal felt a pang of pain. He naturally didn't have a good impression of Huang Danzong and didn't want to care if he lived in that body of a woman. Chapter 8:19. Seeing this, the vice headmaster sighed inwardly and could only stop mentioning it. In the following time, Fingzhou did not pack up and prepare to go home like the others. Instead, she once again immersed herself in refining pills. First, she refined 2 face-nourishing pills. Then, she researched and refined a type of pill that could restore a man's youthful vigor. She named the pill for women the face-nourishing pill, and the pill for men the face-building pill. These 2 types of pills, from the selection of ingredients to the refinement process, were all based on their attributes. Therefore, if one ate the wrong one, the effects would naturally be the same as Huang Danzong's. Seeing that she was immersed in refining pills, Guan Shilin bid farewell to her and told her that he was going to follow the people from the black market to gain experience. Thus, Fingzhou asked him to help her pass a face-nourishing pill to Du Fan and the others so that they could send it to the 100 Years Mountain. After Guan Shilin left, Yi Jing also told Fingzhou the location of her house so that she could go and find her when she had time. Then, she also left the academy and went home. It could be said that of the entire academy's students, only Fingzhou remained in her cave and did not seem to have any intention of leaving. However, there were 2 people who had been neglected, and that was Enchanting and Ouyang. Enchanting saw that Fingzhou had not yet left, so he stayed in the cave to cultivate and planned to leave after she left. As for Ouyang, he was still looking for an opportunity to exchange a few blows with Fingzhou. Therefore, when the others left, he also stayed in the academy. He was waiting for an opportunity to test Mo Wen's strength after he finished refining pills, so that he could satisfy Mo Wen's stubborn desire to fight him. On this day, Imo-chin, who was dressed in white, came to her cave and sat down at the stone table under the tree. His deep, bottomless gaze looked at the cave, where there was faint movement. His expression changed slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. He sat there quietly, and his thoughts seemed to have drifted far away. The 3 beasts at the side weren't sitting down. Their gazes were fixed on him for a while before they moved away. To him, they still recognized him. In the following month, she stayed in the cave and didn't even take a step out of the cave. As for Imo-chin, he would come here every day to sit, watch, and wait, until one day, 3 more bolts of divine retribution lightning fell from the sky. When the divine retribution lightning dissipated, laughter came from the cave. When he heard the laughter, his lips couldn't help but curl up into a smile that even he didn't notice. It's done. It's finally done. Ha 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 ha. Inside the cave, Fingyo held 2 medicinal pills in her hands. These were young attribute face establishing pills. When her grandfather got married, she wanted to refine them for him, but she didn't expect that it would take her until now to refine them. After her excitement, she put away the pills. Seeing that her clothes were a mess, she first washed up and changed into a clean set of clothes before walking out of the cave. However, when she walked out of the cave and saw the white figure under the tree, she couldn't help but be stunned. She looked at him with a strange expression. Young Master Emo-chin. Why are you here? Without waiting for Emo-chin to speak, Lao Bai said, he's been sitting here every day. He didn't just come today. Don't you plan to go home? He asked. His voice was gentle and light, with a trace of indifference. Why? She stared at him guardedly. What does it have to do with you whether I go home or not? Chapter 820. I don't want it. She rejected him without even thinking, and it was a straightforward rejection. Perhaps because he did not expect her to reject him so straightforwardly, Emo-chin was stunned for a moment. For a moment, he did not know what to say, and just looked at her quietly. Seeing this, Fingyo sighed, adjusted his expression, and asked seriously, Young Master Emo-chin, just say it. What do you want to do? Don't tell me you don't have a goal. I remember last time you looked at me with disdain. Why have you been appearing here all this time? What do you want to do? What did he want to do? He was slightly stunned, and then revealed a smile. This smile gradually became warm, but in the end, this smile made Fingyo feel a bit cold. I just want to see what kind of person the Star of the Phoenix is. Star of the Phoenix. What does that mean? This sentence that came out of nowhere made her feel a bit confused. When the Star of the Phoenix appears, a different soul will enter the world. It will come from beyond the heavens, break through the 8 extremes of the way of the heavens, and become the master of the world. He looked at her, and did not miss the strange look that flashed through her eyes. He slowly said, These are the words of my teacher, Elder Tianji. And looking for you is my goal in coming here. Fingyo was stunned, and said, What master of the world? I have never thought of becoming the master of the world. Also, what does this have to do with you looking for me? He was right when he said that a different soul would enter the world, but how did he know it was her? Also, even if that was the case, she had nothing to do with him. Hearing this, his eyes darkened, and his eyes were as deep as the sea. He silently looked at her, and after a long time, he turned and left. Seeing him turn and leave, Fengzhou muttered, Strange. It was strange in the first place. Even if she was that person, it had nothing to do with him, right? Also, this person seemed to like to say things halfway, and it was hard to know what he wanted to say. Master, I think he has bad intentions towards you. Lao Bai said from the side. Fengzhou rolled her eyes. If he had bad intentions, he wouldn't have saved me. Speaking of which, although this person is a bit strange, he has saved me twice. Also, his strength seems to be quite high. She touched her chin and asked, Do you think his cultivation is higher than uncle's? No. The two beasts spoke in unison, almost without thinking, they answered in unison. Fengzhou raised her eyebrows. Why? That Yama King's aura is too strong. Just a look from him and we don't dare to speak. Although this one is also unfathomable, he doesn't have as much dominance and pressure as Yama King. Naturally, he isn't as strong as Yama King. Pooh! As soon as she heard the two beasts call Xianyuan Mo's the King of Hell, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Sigh. We have been here for a year, and I haven't seen him for a year. I wonder how he is. She murmured softly, and looked at the sky in the distance. She really missed him. 10 years, 10 years. Ha ha ha, she would not wait for 10 years to find him. Once she had settled the matters here, she would go to the 8 great empires to take a look. However, compared to that, she had more important things to deal with now. She had asked the people in the black market to find out about her mother. After such a long time, there should be some progress, right? Chapter 8:21. She planned to go out, so she returned to the cave to change out of her school uniform and put on her red robes. However, before she could leave Dan Mountain, she was stopped by Ouyang Xiu. Fengzhou, fight with me. Ouyang Xiu, who was riding on his sword, stared sharply at the young man in red robes. Because he refused to fight with him, this stubbornness in his heart would only grow deeper and deeper. Furthermore, the more he refused to fight, the more the fighting element in his body clamored for a fight. You again. Fengzhou was helpless. Looking at the man in front of her, she felt that he was really stubborn. Why did he insist on fighting with her? Didn't he know that a man hitting a woman was the most immoral act? All right, at least this person didn't know that she was a woman. Furthermore, it was almost impossible for him to find her in a fight with his cultivation level. Ouyang Xiu stared at the young man on the white horse and said, originally, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. But the more you don't want to fight with me, the more I want to fight with you. If you don't want me to bother you, then fight with me. Just the two of us. Don't worry, even if you lose, I won't tell anyone. Pfft. Hearing this, Fengzhou couldn't help but laugh. She felt that this person was really interesting. A person in the middle stage of foundation establishment told her that it didn't matter and that it wasn't embarrassing for her to lose to him. Won't tell anyone. At this moment, she couldn't help but be curious. If this guy knew that she could even kill a nascent soul cultivator, would he still be so arrogant and say such funny things? However, no matter what, she could tell from his words that this person didn't have any bad intentions. He was probably just a person who liked to fight. You really want to fight with me? She raised her eyebrows and looked at him. That's right. But I don't like to fight with people for no reason. Her eyes turned and looked at his darkened expression. She laughed mockingly and said, but, it's not like I can't fight with you. I just don't know, do you dare to bet with me? If you lose, I will be your master in the future. If I lose, I will be your errand boy in the future. How about that? She suddenly became interested. This Ouyang Xiu's appearance was not bad, and his talent was not bad. If she had such a person as her disciple, it seemed that it would be quite good. Hearing this, Ouyang Xiu sneered, I'll take it. However, I must remind you that I have already entered the late stage of foundation establishment. Yes, I know. It's good that you accepted it. She nodded and smiled like a fox that had succeeded. In the next moment, she made her move without any hesitation. When Ouyang Xiu saw this, the aura in his body surged. Just as he was about to fight, his body stiffened, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Good disciple, let me hear you call me master, Fengzhou said with a smile as he stood behind him with one hand around his throat. His face turned green and red at the same time. He didn't expect that he wouldn't even be able to block a single attack from him. Looking at the young man who had retreated from his side and was staring at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, he gritted his teeth. Master. Ah, good disciple. Fengzhou smiled and narrowed his eyes. He looked at the person who was embarrassed and ran away. He laughed all the way to the side gate of the academy. What's wrong? Seeing the guards in front of them, she asked and pulled Lao Bai over to take a look. Chapter 8:22. The figure outside the side door was a little boy who looked to be about 3 or 4 years old. He was wearing a fitted black robe, a pair of boots of the same color, and a jade pendant tassel hanging from his waist. The little boy had his hands clasped behind his back, looking like a little adult. He seemed to be annoyed at being stopped, as he stood there with his brows slightly furrowed. However, Fingzhou didn't even blink when she saw him. This little boy's excessively exquisite features were actually a miniature version of Xianyuan Mo's. His aura, in particular, was somewhat similar. However, he was still a child of 3 or 4 years old, so his aura was clearly lacking. Seeing this child, several thoughts flashed through her mind. Was this his younger brother? That's impossible, right? Younger brothers shouldn't look so similar. With such similar features, even the way they frowned was the same. They were clearly father and son. Illegitimate son. Could this child be Xianyuan Hei's illegitimate son? As soon as this thought appeared, she instantly felt unwell. When Fengzhou appeared, the little boy had obviously noticed her. His eyes flashed with an indescribable light as he stared at her, then looked away, as if he was somewhat embarrassed. Ah! Ninth young master. Hui Lang, who was standing behind the little boy, immediately shouted happily when he saw her. He said to the guard, "Quickly move aside, move aside. I'm looking for her, looking for her." Seeing this, the guard retreated to the side, but his eyes were still sizing them up from time to time. Fengzhou had already seen Hui Lang a while ago. However, when she saw that the little boy's features were so similar to Xianyuan Moses, she immediately became unhappy. Don't tell her what brothers were. No matter how similar brothers were, they wouldn't look so similar. Ninth young master, I haven't seen you for more than a year. I've really missed you to death. Hui Lang excitedly came in front of her. However, as soon as he said this, he felt 2 cold gazes fall on him from behind. He couldn't help but stiffen, then smiled embarrassedly. "Actually, my master also missed you. Come with me." She hooked her finger, indicating for him to come to the side. "Yes." Hui Lang responded and turned to look at the child. Then, he followed her to the side and asked with a smile, "Ninth young master, actually, I'm here this time." Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted. "Your master's illegitimate son." She glanced at the little boy from the corner of her eyes. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that he looked exactly like Xianyuan Mo's. What? Hui Lang widened his eyes in astonishment. "Master's illegitimate child. How is that possible? Why would she think that?" On the other side, the little boy who was looking away but was listening to their conversation tensed up when he heard this. The corner of his mouth twitched imperceptibly. Fengzhou crossed his arms and snorted coldly. "Isn't that the case? Don't tell me that he's your master's younger brother. Your master is almost 30 years old. It's not impossible for him to have an illegitimate child. Don't you think so?" Hearing her sarcastic words, Hui Lang smiled embarrassedly and said, "Well, ninth young master, this really isn't my master's illegitimate child. My master is a virgin." Chapter 8:23. The 2 guards at the side had been listening attentively. When they heard this, their expressions became strange. When they looked at the red-clothed Fengzhou, their gazes were filled with curiosity and strangeness. Who would have thought that such a handsome youth with an outstanding temperament was actually gay? After hearing Hui Lang's words, Fengzhou glanced at him, then glanced at the child at the side and asked, "Then who is he? Why did you bring him here?" "He is..." Hui Lang's voice paused. He looked at her and grinned. "Master asked me to bring him here and hand him over to you. He asked you to protect him well." Hearing this, she frowned. Is his situation very bad? It's been more than a year, and his troubles still haven't been resolved. How could it be so easy? It's because his current situation isn't very good, and he has no time to take care of him. That's why he asked me to bring him here and hand him over to you. He said that he wouldn't be at ease no matter where he was placed, and that he would only be at ease if he was by your side. That's why I brought him here from so far away. Hui Lang smiled apologetically while wiping away his cold sweat, saying, Master can't do without me, and it took quite a bit of time on the way here. Now that I've brought him here, I have to go back first. As he spoke, he didn't give Fengzhou a chance to speak. He quickly walked to the little boy's side and said to him, Then you'll follow her from now on. I'll take my leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, he directly left on his flying sword. Fengzhou was stunned for a moment. Seeing him leave as if he was escaping, she couldn't help but curse, Hui Lang. You bastard! Why haven't you come back and explained everything to me? This bastard, she hadn't seen him for more than a year, and she still wanted to ask him about his master's situation. He actually left that little brat behind and then left. What the hell was he doing? She suppressed her anger and looked at the little brat standing there like a little adult with his hands behind his back. He even glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. She couldn't help but glare at him. Little fellow, come here. Although she was suppressing her anger, she couldn't get angry when she saw that the child had a miniature version of Mose's face. Even when she spoke, her voice was softer, as if she was afraid of scaring the 3 to 4-year-old child. The child looked at her and thought for a moment. Then, he walked over to her and saw that he wasn't even at her waist. His delicate little face, and his face darkened again. What's your name? She squatted down and looked at the child at eye level. Little King of Hell, he said, his voice so tender that it made one's heart soften. Feng Zhou couldn't help but chuckle when she saw his delicate little face and the way he stood with his hands behind his back. Little King of Hell. Are you being called that because you are too naughty? I'm asking for your real name, not your nickname. As she looked at the child, she wondered if their child would also look like this if she married Xianyuan Mose. However, this child who looked exactly like him, was he really not his illegitimate child? He glanced at her and opened his mouth, King of Hell. His soft voice was unique to 3 to 4-year-old children. Chapter 8:24. He nodded. Looking at her, a suspicious blush appeared on his delicate little face. His eyes flashed, and he reached out a hand to her. Seeing this, Fengzhou smiled and bent down to pick him up. How about I let you ride on this white horse? Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, the child in her arms tightly wrapped his arms around her neck. I don't want to ride. Fine, I'll carry you, okay? She classified him as a 3 or 4-year-old child. He was afraid of a strange-looking white horse like bye. The child lay on her shoulder, his arms tightly wrapped around her neck. A strange light flashed through his beautiful eyes, and a smile blossomed on his lips. No one noticed. Fengzhou told bye to go back first. She tossed out Flying Feather and took the child to the ovens to see if there was anything to eat. After grabbing a few things, she returned to the Immortal's cave and went to the stone table under the tree. All right, sit down. Eat something first, and then you can tell me everything. She sat down on the stone table with the child in her arms. Then she took out the things she had taken from the ovens from her space and placed them on the table. Only then did she sit down and look at the little guy. The child looked at her, but didn't say anything. Instead, he began to eat. Fengzhou sat there with one hand propping up her cheek. The more she looked, the more she felt that the child really did look like Xianyuan Mose. However, she didn't think it was possible that he was an illegitimate child. After all, the uncle was a clean freak. The first time they met, she accidentally kissed him on the mouth and he fainted. She could only say that he had such a big child. But a little brother. She didn't believe it. If he really was a little brother, Hui Lang wouldn't have run away. He was obviously afraid that she would ask all sorts of questions. Hey, pretty boy, tell big sister, what's your relationship with uncle? Tell big sister, and big sister will take you to buy some candy. How about it? She was like Hui Lang trying to lure a little lamb, coaxing the child to see if he would tell the truth. Who would have thought that the child would not even bat an eyelid? He was eating elegantly, and even his sitting posture was extremely proper, which made her stunned. She thought to herself, as expected of someone from the 8 great empires. Even this 3 or 4-year-old child seems to have become a spirit. His actions are so elegant that even I can't compare with him. After a long time, he put down his chopsticks and wiped the corners of his mouth. He looked at Fengzhou and said, water. Hearing this, Fengzhou entered the immortal's cave and poured a cup of water for him. Seeing him drink the water like a little adult and then sit upright and look at her, she actually didn't know what to say. She suddenly felt that she would become very busy with such a child by her side. Seeing his gaze fall on her cave residence, she said, "Shall I bring you in to see where I live?" "Yes." He responded and slid down the stool to follow her into the cave. After looking around the cave, they finally came to Fengzhou's room and saw that it was quite spacious. "I'm the only one here. How about this? I'll tidy up later and make a stone room for you." "No need, I'll just stay in the same room as you." He spoke in a tender voice, and his delicate little face was tense. However, his ears were suspiciously red, and he didn't dare to look at Phone 9. Instead, he stared at the alchemy room. Chapter 8:25. There's only one bed in my room. I'm small, I can't take up much space. His expression didn't change as he spoke. He walked around the room with his hands behind his back and said, "In the future, you have to take me with you wherever you go." Fengzhou stared at him, somewhat confused. Just as she was about to ask him something, she heard a voice from outside. "Fengzhou, Fengzhou, the dean wants you to go to the main peak." She walked out and saw that it was one of the dean's people. She nodded and said, "I understand, I'll go over in a bit." Seeing that person leave, she turned around and said to the little boy behind her, "I'm going out for a bit." Before she could finish, she was interrupted. "I'll go with you." As she spoke, a small hand tugged at the corner of her robe. Seeing the little boy tugging at her robe, Fengzhou smiled helplessly and said, all right, let's go together. Anyway, I really need to report to the dean that I have you tagging along." Thus, she brought him to the main peak on the flying feather. When she arrived at the dean's courtyard, she noticed that other than the dean and the vice dean, Mo Chen was also there. When the 3 of them saw her, their gazes simultaneously fell on the 3 or 4-year-old child beside her. Where did this child come from? The dean asked, his gaze sizing up the delicate little boy. He couldn't see anything special about him. He only knew that this child's appearance was outstanding, and at such a young age, he already had an extraordinary aura. Just by standing there, he gave off a sharp and intimidating aura, like a sharp blade waiting to be drawn. When the little boy came here, he didn't show any fear, not even stage fright. He stood with his hands behind his back like a little adult, puffing out his chest and looking at them with his chin slightly raised. Oh, no, his gaze only swept past the dean and the vice dean before landing on the white-clothed Mo Chen, sizing him up and probing him. Mo Chen also felt the child's deep and sharp gaze that didn't seem like a child's had been sizing him up ever since he came in. When he saw this, he was slightly surprised in his heart and also sized him up. However, he discovered that he couldn't see through this child. He was clearly a little boy of 3 or 4 years old, but he had a pressure and noble aura that made one's heart tremble. He clearly had the appearance of a child, but the cold light that shot out from his eyes made one not dare to underestimate him. Then, this little boy's exquisite features really reached the pinnacle. Even in the royal family, it was rare to see such an outstanding little boy. "Dean, Vice Dean, this is Ling Mohan's son." She changed the topic and directly said Uncle's son. "Mohan. You even know him." Hearing this name that hadn't been mentioned for a long time, the dean and vice dean were slightly surprised. Yes, we've met a few times. She smiled and nodded. He sent someone over, saying that he had something to do and couldn't leave. He could only send his son over for me to take care of him. Moreover, he used to be a teacher here, so he felt that the dean and the vice dean wouldn't mind. The little boy standing beside Fengzhou's eyes moved slightly. He raised his head and glanced at her, then stood there quietly, not saying a word. Chapter 8:26. As he spoke, his eyes were filled with admiration. This child really looks like his father, but he is much better looking than his father. Fengzhou heard this and could not help but laugh. And that's true. Uncle's bearded face is really scary. The child next to them heard their words and his delicate little face tightened. He still did not speak. You all sit. The dean gestured and said, Actually, I called you here because I wanted to tell you in advance that there will be a ranking competition between the schools after school starts next year. It will be a school competition between the 6th class and the 2nd class countries. Every school will only have 10 places to go to the 2nd class countries to compete, and they will represent our school. I plan to include you. What do you think? Hearing this, she did not directly agree. Instead, she turned her eyes and asked with a smile. What are the benefits of winning? If there are no benefits, then I won't go. If I participate in that competition, I won't have time to refine more pills to earn money. The dean and the vice dean were stunned. They then shook their heads and laughed. Of course there are benefits. The dean said. I don't know if I have told you before, but the Academy of Stars and Clouds is only a branch of the Academy of Stars and Clouds in the Enchanting country. Every country has a branch of the Academy of Stars and Clouds, and in the first-class countries, it can be said to be the headquarters of our country. His voice paused and continued. However, only those who have the highest strength can enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds in the first-class countries. The Academy of Stars and Clouds in the first-class countries is rated as a 1-star school. Here, we only have a 6-star school. Speaking till here, he smiled and said, If there is someone among you who can get an outstanding result in the wind and cloud competition of the Academy, then you can directly be admitted into the 1-star Academy of the first-class country. The 1-star Academy is very big, it is not something that we can compare with. Moreover, there are many proud sons of heaven from various countries gathered there. The students who come out from there, in the future, will have extraordinary achievements in various places, and there will be people in every field. However, the place that really makes the students of the 1-star school break their heads to enter is the Nebula sect. It is a sect in the 8 great empires. It has a long history and is very powerful. Its disciples are everywhere. In the Nebula sect, there are strong cultivators above the nascent soul stage. That place is the cradle of the proud sons of heaven. He looked at Fengzhou and said, I hope that you can go. Others don't know, but if it is you, I believe that you can enter a 1-star school. In the future, you will have the opportunity to enter the Nebula sect. Fengzhou's eyes slightly moved. This was the first time he heard the dean of this school. Nebula sect. In the 8 great empires. At the thought of this, she calculated in her heart. She was currently at the peak of the foundation building realm, but under the pressure of the ancient divine beast, the fire phoenix, as well as the martial arts and assassination techniques she had mastered, she could fight and kill nascent soul cultivators, but she still couldn't do it perfectly. Then, before that, she would have to enter the golden core realm as soon as possible. If her strength improved further, even if she went to other places, she would be able to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Okay, I will agree to this. She nodded and said. Anyway, she will go to the 8 great empires in the future. With such a bridge, going to the 8 great empires would not be like a headless fly. Chapter 8:27. Coming out from the main peak, the little fellow pursed his lips and asked, who is that man in white? When Fingzhou heard this, she was startled and asked with a smile, "You're talking about Imo Chin? Say he's Tianji Elder's disciple, what do you think? Do you think he looks like a banished immortal?" "He's just a gigolo," he said with a taut face. "Pfft. Gigolo. How can a gigolo be so good-looking?" She laughed lightly, but saw the little fellow's face become uglier and uglier. She couldn't help but find it amusing. Reaching out, she pinched his soft skin and joked, "But he's not as good-looking as you. You're so cute." Hearing this, the originally angry little fellow's ears turned red again. His eyes flashed as he looked at her and somewhat arrogantly looked away. "Don't use such superficial words to praise me." Although his tender voice was stiff, it couldn't hide the slight smile on his face and the slightly raised corners of his lips. It was obvious that his heart was blooming with joy, but he still put on a sour face. "You're only 3 or 4 years old and you're already so smart. Are all the children on your side like you?" She stared at the child walking beside her and asked. She felt that other than his small body and soft voice, his temperament really didn't seem like a child's. "Don't try to trick me, I won't tell you." He humphed and walked forward with his short legs. Looking at the little fellow walking with his hands behind his back, she raised her eyebrows and smiled. Then, she went back to the cave with him. Because the pills had been refined and the academy was on vacation, the entire star cloud was empty. Only a few teachers and principals who didn't go back were left here. Because of this, she also wanted to go back home to take a look, or go out for a walk. Thus, after bringing the little fellow back to the cave, she asked, "How about I send you back to my home?" Who knew that as soon as she said this, the little fellow would angrily glare and anxiously shout, "You dare!" He glared at her, his little face dark. He clearly had an angry look on his face, but the childish voice that came out of his little mouth destroyed the feeling of anger. It really sounded soft and harmless. "If you dare to keep me in your house, I'll dare to sneak out. If you can't find me by then, or if something happens to me, I'll see how you're going to explain it. But I plan to walk around. It's very troublesome to bring a little thing like you along," she said with a frown, but in her heart, she was curious about his overreaction. "I'll only follow you, I'm not going anywhere." He made his stance clear again, staring at her with a pair of dark eyes. Fengzhou looked at the pair of eyes staring at him. He touched his nose. What the hell, she actually had the illusion that Xianyuan Mose was staring at her. She felt guilty for no reason. In the end, it was Fengzhou who compromised. After all, Hui Lang specially sent this child over from such a faraway place. It could be seen how important he was. Moreover, Xianyuan Mose couldn't take care of him over there and left him in her care. If she said that she sent him to the Phoenix Dynasty, to be honest, she really didn't feel at ease. After all, his identity was too special. Thus, on this day, the two of them chatted casually in front of the cave. Most of the time, Fengzhou asked, but the little fellow didn't answer and only listened.